Yes.
And I approve as well. Okay, and Barb, principal report.
So
Should I know before that Nancy is joining and Heather Webster has joined, and so is Julie Meltzer. Is that for the record there?
Great. So just real quickly, what's happening at CES Remote School, we continue with our school culture goal. Heather's put together Virtual Spirit Week, and each day has a theme and a challenge. The staff did a great job with Crazy Hat Day. Can't wait to see Crazy Sock Day. The kids have had a chance to partake in a virtual track meet and a scavenger hunt set up by the phys ed department, which has been great, and some of the teachers. For parent communication, we're still working with surveys, newsletters, the end of year conversation with teachers, and emails. So again, we're trying to keep it as a high priority, and it's sort of slipped by a little bit, but the newsletters are so comprehensive that Heather does it. I think everybody's feeling good. Surveys for remote learning. I'm not sure if everyone's aware, but Julie's put together a survey for parents, for staff, and students grades 5 through 8. And that's really going to help us as we plan for the next segue into what remote learning may or may not be. So we're looking forward to that. Library books, Siobhan's sent out a survey for parents and students to request books over the summer, trying to get some real books in hands. Academic updates. There's the end of the year reporting, which is the narrative summary and the end of year conversation with parents. We're going to have some summer school options, the extended school year services, which is determined through the IEP, that's special ed. And then we have Title I RTI, which is teacher recommended. And finally, we're trying something new at a district level, summer enrichment activity. So teachers are putting together proposals as we speak and sending them up to Julie to offer some just activities for students during the summer, which I think will be great. We have some professional development opportunities for our ed techs to partake in during the 6 days that, or 7 days rather, that the staff is back working on the narratives and end of year conversations. For building and maintenance, the maintenance staff is back in full swing. Steve Strout sent me his letter of retirement over the weekend. So Steve has retired and we wish him well. So you'll be seeing an advertisement in the paper coming up soon. Peter and I have been talking about projects for consideration, realizing that we're not going to have a building right off quick. So the first thing that really seems to be important is sealing the seams on the Connors roof, and then possibly resealing the pavement. So we're going to just start looking at getting some ideas of what that might be, and if it's if it makes sense to extend the life of the building without going too crazy into huge amounts of money. Food services, the food boxes are tentatively scheduled to end June 17th. We're still waiting to hear whether or not we have a waiver from the federal government to continue. I actually have a remote meeting tomorrow with Walter Beasley, who's in charge of that. But the food backpacks will continue through the summer, and that's both on the east side of the island and the west side, which is excellent. New iPads have arrived. They've been formatted and delivered for K2 students. We've delivered more hotspots to students and staff. We still have a challenge in some areas with staff, especially with at Beach Hill Crossroads and Indian Point Road with students. So it's just really hard for the hotspots to work off the cellular towers. And then dates to remember, June 3rd, we have a town council review of the town budget. The last day for students is the 5th. We have a warrant committee meeting on the 8th, town council adoption on the 10th. 11th is our 8th grade promotion ceremony, and we sent letters out to the parents and students today letting them know. June 12th and 15th, we're going to return the devices and materials to school. And then the last day for staff is the 16th. So I think that covers everything.
Are there any questions for Barb? Marie?
There we go. How does the coordination work for the backpacks from the school? The food backpacks, the food, I don't know if I'm calling the right thing. I know
The food backpacks.
Yeah.
So it's there's a group that actually gets organized down at the First Congregational Church. And so they put the backpacks together every Wednesday morning. And right now, Vicki Fernald is in charge of it. And she actually called, and Rob Benson. So they reach out to the schools, and each school has a designated person, whether it's the school nurse, could be the school social worker, whatever. And then they just let people know if there's been any changes, if anybody's requested a backpack for the family, or if they no longer need it.
Okay, and that's how it's operated throughout this, like the pandemic. I mean, you have enough support. I mean, the reason I ask is I listened to the town council meeting that was about the pandemic a couple days ago. I can't remember what the actual name of it was, but there were representatives from all over, and there was representatives from Healthy Acadia, and they were talking about their ability to assist with food issues and food insecurity. And I just keep thinking about whether or not you have enough help doing that, and if it's something that another one of those things that can be. There's already a couple of different units of people and organizations out there that's really something they're already in, and they've already sort of have their outlets for. And if that's something that can take some of the
Vicki,
pressure off you, or not really.
Honestly, I'm not spending any time with it. The backpack program. I've gone down a few times and volunteered to help with the backpacks, but even then they've got such a well-oiled machine that it can only have so many people. And when people have asked where they can donate, money to, a lot of times it's the food pantry and the backpack program are sharing similar money.
Okay.
And that seems to be well funded right now, but I would say that seems to be one of the best ways to use money if people wanted to donate money. We had a few people saying, where could they donate their stimulus check to? And it seemed, reaching the most people, whether it's student or community, it's through the food pantry and the backpack.
Barb, how are they getting the backpacks? Are they being delivered by volunteers, or do they have to come to the congregational church?
No, the volunteers bring them out to each of the schools, and then there's a person that meets them at the school and then distributes them to the families when they drive up and get them. So they do have to come to the school.
Cool.
And we've actually delivered at times if somebody's having a hard time, but we haven't in the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions? Mark, do you?
Not a question, but just on the tag into the principal's report, just wanted to make you aware that have been having conversations with Cornell Knight, the town manager, and they're still trying to figure out town meeting. Obviously, Nancy and I are working through that, but I know that you've been copied on the emails, Christy, so we don't have any answers yet, and that's true of all towns. So we're still kind of in a wait and see approach, but we are having conversations. So as soon as we have updates, we'll make sure you're aware. And I wanted to apologize in advance. I'm not able to make the warrant committee meeting. I sent an email because I have a school committee meeting on Wednesday. So apologies for that. Thank you.
And I think, no, we had talked with Mark, and I had talked with Matt Haney about trying to come up with creative ways to use the high school if we need to for town meeting with a limitation of 50 people. We could use the high school to separate groups of 50 and pipe that information in. And so it's just trying to figure out, I think, the logistics of doing something like that. But so you all know, we are trying to work together and work with the town to see if we can make that happen. I don't know. The only thing I had to say was what Barb said. There is a budget review meeting of the new budget with the town council. The town council will be reviewing the full budget on Wednesday, I think at 5 p.m. And if you want to attend, you can, I can send you all the link. They're going to bring us in as just, like if you watch the town council meetings now, like you don't see the public, you only see the council members. So we'll be able to view the meeting as observers, but if there's a specific question asked, they'll be able to, like, you know, if Barb or Nancy need to answer a question, they'll turn them on just for that portion of the meeting. And I'm happy to, I can forward that Zoom meeting if you'd like to attend. So that's on Wednesday at 5 p.m. And then what was the next? The warrant committee is the next one.
The 8th, I think, and the 10th.
8th and the 10th. So we are moving forward. And those aren't public meetings, are they?
I would think they would be.
I believe they are.
Period.
Yeah.
Unless they have to write it in or, okay. So I know that Barb and Nancy and I will plan to attend, and then I'll send out the link to the rest of you if you want to join it. For any of the meetings I get, I'll send it out to you. Who's doing remote learning feedback? Oh, I had one more thing. I did get an email forwarded to me from Cornell Knight, from a concerned Bar Harbor citizen who was writing to Cornell just with concerns about the budget, asking for, you know, budget cuts and for the town and the school to be more frugal. You know, I did respond that I felt like we had reviewed the budget again and made the appropriate cuts where we could, and I was satisfied that we had, you know, made the right changes, but that might come up again. So I'll just give you guys a heads up on that.
Christy, may I just follow up on that very quickly?
Yes.
I would concur, and I'd like to just say, I don't want to remind, but just say for the general public that this budget that Barb put together and it was presented to the school committee was very fiscally responsible budget to begin with. Although we're very sensitive to what's going on in our communities and COVID-19, I just want to reiterate that there are no wants in this budget. These were all legitimate things that really are significantly important to impact teaching and learning positively. That said, I believe the school committee did their due diligence to make those adjustments given the times we're in. And we will continue to keep a very, very solid eye during these uncertain times. But I do want to stress that they were not wants, they're needs. Thank you very much.
Well, and I also stressed that we cut some needed positions that actually weren't wants, but very much needed, that we also cut from the budget. Two, actually, one at the AOS level and one at our local level. Is this the remote learning feedback? Is this going to be you, Mark, or Julie? The update?
If Julie, if it pleases you, I think Julie is better positioned to speak to that. Thank you.
I don't know if you're referring specifically to the survey or not, but I just looked at the survey from parents from Connors, and 40 parents have responded so far. And typically people who respond to a survey have
strong feelings.
And that said, everybody had strong feelings, and you would think they weren't going to the same school, even for the same grade. It was too much. It wasn't enough. It was terrible. We're not participating again. The teachers were fabulous and it was wonderful. It was just the right amount. The communication was just right, was not okay. We didn't hear. We heard just in time. I mean, it's all over the place. When we have more specific information, I'll report it out at the local meetings, both in terms of by school and then across by sort of grade band, just so that you have a sense of what was happening. But I was just really struck by that.
How did we get that
survey? What?
How did that survey come out? Was it just an email blast, or was it part of the
newsletter?
I was gonna say, I don't think I saw the survey, but maybe I missed the newsletter.
So it was in the school messenger email that was sent out, and then the link was also in the newsletter. So it would have been out on Friday. and we'll put it in this week's newsletter.
All right. I don't remember seeing it. Maybe I
I don't
missed.
think I saw it. I mean, I think I saw it in the newsletter, but I don't think I saw a specific messenger about it. Because I always read the newsletter, Heather. Okay. I do. Because I know you write it and it's always funny. So I would just echo.
I need a separate email.
Yeah, I would say, Mark, somebody at the AO, I mean, this is really going out. This really, if Julie's saying that she's getting vast, you know, she needs more data because it's so vastly different. I think this is, I mean, I get a text from you whenever an email goes out. I'm reading the email. If this is super important, let's get a text from you so I can read the email.
Hey, please go. Yep.
Yeah, let's
All right,
ramp
so
it up.
please send it on Power School.
But it might be there.
You
There's a
need
lot
to be
of-
careful because the Connors version is slightly different because of the size of the school. And the Connors parent version is slightly different because of the size of the school. So we're going to have to, when we blast it out, we're going to have to blast out Connors and then the high school and then the other schools.
Oh, no, just Barb can blast it out. I think she
So blast it.
Okay. All right, great.
But it might be something, Julie, to take back to the other principals in the other meetings.
Okay.
Any other questions or concerns about that? And then Barb, you've already touched a little bit, but you want to talk more on the end of the year activities?
There's not a whole lot happening other than what I had stated. June 11th, we will be doing a promotion ceremony. It will be at 4:30 on the school field at school. And we're just putting some hopefully nice surprises and touches together. So it'll be a surprise to some of the students, hopefully all of the students. We're keeping in mind all of the safety protocol, but we will have students have a chance to kind of come up and receive their certificate and bag of parting gifts, if we will. So that's what we're going to be doing.
Now, I'd heard this is not a drive-through.
I'm not sure what a drive-through is versus, I mean, parents will have to stay in their cars. Families will have to stay in their cars. But we are at this point going to allow students to come up and kind of cross over a makeshift stage, grab their certificate and bag, which will all be in just a bag that they can grab. And then we're hoping to have a photographer there so that they can a photographer can get pictures for the family, so that we're making it as seamless and safe as possible.
Do you have a photographer? It sounds like, I mean, or are you looking for people to reach out to you that have?
See, this is one of those things I delegated, Marie. You have to ask my other half, Heather.
Oh,
I'm in charge of cupcakes. I'm in charge of cupcakes.
Heather probably
not
has
a
someone from Disney, like flying
I'm
in.
very excited. So Kim Frazier has an excellent camera. The kids will smile for her. So I had to find somebody they would smile for. And I'm now trying to imagine what the photo props will be, like the background for the picture. I'm not sure.
Are we going to have a green screen?
I did think of that, but I don't want to go too overboard. You know, I know it's for the children and all, but yeah, it's more for the parents. So we'll figure out something good. But yeah, Kim Frazier is going to do it, and they know her, so they will smile for her. That was the big thing. It'll be awesome.
Lily.
I have a question. I've always kind of wondered is, and I know this year is different, but is this the promotional ceremony something that we as a school board should participate in or be there, or I'm not sure what parents expect or what you expect as the administration. Because if it's something that you think we should participate in, I certainly will.
So I guess what I would say is another year, if we're back in the building, it's always wonderful to see you guys there. But for this year, we're kind of scrunched for space.
Right.
Unless you have a child graduating, it probably isn't the year to come, if that doesn't sound too harsh.
No. I was more just wondering if the presence of the school board, it would be important. Obviously not this year, but I've thought
Yeah.
about it the last few years. Like, we've never really talked about that. We've never done that all together. And I mean, sort of, if we all came together,
Yeah.
as, I mean, we do work together for our school, and I feel like it might be appropriate for us to be there, but not this
You
year.
probably
but-
don't actually know who we are, so.
Yeah. Anyway, just a question.
It's all right. They don't know who I am either, Christy. They just say, oh, you're that lady.
So Barb, and this might, I don't mean to be like a touchy question, but I know there's issues at the high school as well for, having these drive-up ceremonies and children with divorced parents or
Yep.
people who can't ride in the car together and families
Yeah,
being
no.
put in one car. That's all worked. You'll make
Yeah.
accommodations, right? That's
Yeah, we've already figured out how many parents need it. We've been in touch with them. They've been in touch with us. It's all good.
Yeah, I just want to make sure. I totally assume that you would
Mhm.
accommodations, but I would hate for any student to feel like a portion of their
No.
family is left out or issues
No.
like that. Okay.
No, we've got that covered. And actually this year we don't have as many as we've had in the past. So that's kind of nice.
Christy. Yeah, and just to let you know, I appreciate the comment. And Matt is working with students and families too to work that through. I'll just real quickly give a shout out to the kids and the families. It's been difficult. What these guys have lost, we can't replicate, we can't replace. But at the same time, their patience, their flexibility, and the things they're doing to define some new traditions that hopefully can be incorporated are awesome. But we recognize, and I can't say enough how bad we all feel that we're not able to do what we would normally do. But the support and the flexibility people have had has been amazing, and we appreciate it. It's hard for everyone. Thank you.
Julie.
I just have a funny comment to share. I went back and forth on a meet with Dick Broom, and he said, I'm really going to miss graduation. I said, I think the families and the students are really going to miss graduation. I think you're going to feel like you wish it was going on. But he was so funny. We have such a supportive community in that way. So.
Anybody else? Any additional comments about that? Well, thank you, Barb and Heather and Mark and Julie and everybody working to try to make this as special as you can. So for public comment, I do have a comment to read from the Teachers Association. And I think my question earlier was going to be, we don't typically comment on public comment openly, but I think Barb has kind of for some follow-up information to this public comment. Is this the time? Can I read the comment and then have Barb do follow-up right now while we're in public comment?
Certainly. As you said, Christy, normally the school committee doesn't respond, and when they choose to respond, it's later. But I think if you're fine, and it would be very appropriate to have Barb share that information. Thank you.
Okay. So here's the comment. The Bar Harbor Teachers Association held a virtual meeting recently to discuss questions and concerns regarding the current remote learning and the opening of the 2021 school year. What follows is simply a list of the common themes that arose in our meeting. We will follow this up with a more in-depth list, but at this point, we want the school board and administration to be aware that we have concerns and questions. We have already arranged a meeting with our co-presidents and Ms. Neely. And then the list includes safety protocols, cleaning disinfectant protocols, concerns about reopening, although they realize there is much that cannot be decided about that as of yet, the increasing expectations of students, teachers, and families, and finally, the implication that teachers aren't working hard during remote learning. So that's the short list. Barb had a meeting with Brian and Amanda, and so she can give a little more detail to the list. So that's why I just invited her to comment on this.
So before I share my thoughts, I'll just tell you, I received a copy of something from a Benjamin Morgan it was shared with friends and whatnot, but they talked about meetings lately are mostly like this. 1, we don't know much. 2, what we do know, we can't really tell you. 3, everything is going to change. And 4, given the above, please make a plan. And that's exactly what we've been feeling like. And I think that's what the teachers are feeling like. They did a great job of, I think, generating a list of concerns and more importantly, generating a list of things for the ad hoc safety group to take into consideration. And I thought it was very thoughtfully done. And I think Amanda and Brian would share that we had a good conversation. My plan going forward had been right along to have a school sort of safety committee meet on a regular basis when we are able to return to school. That would include Melissa Veith, the nurse, Peter, the head custodian, Heather and myself, as well as representatives from the 2 buildings. And probably it makes most sense for the co-presidents, Amanda and Brian, to sit in on that. So, you know, as I had talked about in my, in my evaluation, one of the areas that I think we need to pay more attention to is the buildings. You know, now that we know we're going to be with them they'll be with us for at least another 4 to 5 years. You know, what can we do to make sure that everybody's feeling that they're in tip-top shape? So that's going to be our focus. Focusing on teachers not working hard enough. I can't remember the exact wording of that. The implication that teachers aren't working hard during remote learning. I still feel that this is a statement that's taken out of context. I don't think there's any doubt that teachers are working hard. What I did share with Amanda and Brian is that I felt that there had been some very uneven learning experiences across the district for students as well as our school. And I think Julie's just, quick synopsis of what she's seeing on the parent surveys is saying the same thing. And so, what I would be looking for in those surveys, and again, I shared with Amanda and Brian, is like, basically what's working, what's not, how do we ensure that all students are engaging with their education and quite truthfully, it may look a little bit differently. There have been kids who have done well with the remote learning. And I've been somewhat surprised at the kids who have, to be honest, and more surprised at the kids who are struggling with it. So I think we have a lot to learn from students, from staff, and from parents. And, I think the implication should be, we are going to revise, we're going to revisit, we're going to improve what we've done, but not necessarily for teachers to feel that they haven't been doing the hard work that they have been doing. So I think it's wording.
Does anybody want to comment, or would you? Okay, Marie.
I just had a question. Was the comment about the implication where was the implicate I'm confused about where that implication was. It like in the world, like on our island, people on the island are saying, or like someone individual is like, I'm just confused about where.
I think it's a combination. I think some of it came from an interview. And some of it, I think, are passing comments that they're hearing maybe from some families. So I think it's a combination.
Lily, did you want to comment?
I had a similar question of the source of the issue because, this is just my personal experience, but I've been open the whole entire time that this has been happening, and I see 70 to 100 people a day, and I have heard nothing but positive comments. Yes, some tough mother and father moments of trying to make it happen and all that, but absolutely not one shred of negativity towards teachers. In fact, parents are I think, see teachers in a whole different light than ever before. So I just want to say, I know it's just one little lane of life on MDI, but
Yeah.
I haven't heard anything.
And I would agree with you, Lily. I think it's a really small minority, but it's a tender spot to be poked at right now. I think that's where some of the angst is coming, heading into some of these end of the year conversations that, you know, teachers are going to be having with parents. Am I going to hear, you know, am I going to get an earful? And we've assured them that, you know, we're happy to sit in on those meetings, and they'll have second adults in the meetings as well. But it's the unknown, you know, and I think it's also the fact that teachers are working really, really hard. This is just such a huge learning curve. And for some, they haven't felt like they've done right by the kids, even though they've been working really, really hard. You know, whether it's the technology wasn't working for them, whether, you know, kids couldn't get to them because they didn't have internet, whatever. It just, for some, it's been more difficult than others.
I just want to be sure that this particular feeling or whatever doesn't get blown out of proportion. So if there's any way we can, you know, handle the situation that if a comment or whatever was made and someone is really feeling super sensitive, I think I don't want to let it fly too far.
You know, I think, Lily, just, you know, the fact that we're sharing this information with you, and you as a, you know, private business owner, you know, who's saying publicly, I have not heard one shred of that. And to the contrary, I mean, if you wanted to even just email that out to the teachers and let them know, I think that would go a long way too.
Okay.
And I did send when I got this list, I did respond to Brian and Amanda asking, you know, I said, I think that the board would appreciate the details under each of these headings. And I said, especially referring to the implication that teachers aren't working hard enough, because I know nobody on this board in particular has expressed any of those comments. And we would be concerned that anyone was feeling this way, because we do appreciate, we know they've put in and they've gone above and beyond what we've asked, and they've done something very difficult. And I think moving forward with these parent teacher conferences, I think we all have to remember too that a lot of people are feeling a lot of anxiety and frustration, and this was very hard for them. And if you open the door, they're going to release a lot of that frustration and anxiety on who opens the door, when it's not necessarily the cause of their frustration and anxiety. I mean, everybody's mad at this virus, but they can't, you know, I think it was Matt Haney who said, like, people can't yell at the virus. So
Right.
no, they're going to yell at who they can yell at. And I hope everybody keeps that in the back of their mind, that sometimes it's just a venting that's happening. It's not about what it sounds like. Julie.
I just want to say I've been doing that coaching in every single common study session that I did over the last 2 weeks, to just acknowledge that. And we've really tried to shift the description. So it's not a parent teacher conference, but it's just a conversation that said, you know, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly here. Let's recognize the fact that this was hard for everyone and we got through it. Yes. Let's take that time to acknowledge that we've been partnering really closely with parents. In some cases, teachers have done that deliberately. In other cases, teachers have done that by default. But parents have been working really, really hard. And I think that some of the differences in the feedback that we're getting also represent people's angst about whether or not they did enough, or whether or not their kid did enough, or whether or not I just think that what you said is absolutely spot on, that a lot of people may choose to release and then it may not be personal. And we've given the teachers some wording for how they could handle that. So we'll see.
Mark.
Christy, thanks. I don't want to belabor the point. I think Barb did a nice job giving an overview, but I think you said it really well. This is a very uncertain time for a lot of people, and people's awareness is up. We're processing a little differently, but I think it goes without saying that it's hard to compare things to prior to March 13th and now. They're different for all of us in a lot of ways. And so I hope all of us receiving information, when we hear words and statements, that we can make sure that we're having conversations with people to put it into context, because from day one, I know our teachers, I know all of our staff, I know our administrators, everybody's doing the very best they can. They really are. I believe that in my heart. And I also believe that, this has given us opportunity to kind of look within, and that's part of the feedback process. So I'm appreciative that it's coming forward, but I think it's important to put it in context and make sure that we're really careful, because we're in some uncertain times. We're going to learn a lot through the advisory group that I'm going to put together, which is a good segue to kind of addressing some of these things. And I would like to give also a shout out to Barb, because I think as much as this advisory group that I'm going to put together that's going to help vet some of this information, the real power is going to be with groups like Barb's at the building-based level, where teachers and staff can work to make sure that they use these guidelines to make sure people are heard, all the stakeholders are invested. So it can't just be this macro district level approach. I mean, I think that's where we need to start, much the way we do with policy. But at the end of the day, that grassroots approach is going to be really, really important. So thank you for just letting me add a little bit of context to that, because I'll just close by giving a shout out to all of our teachers and our staff. I know people are doing the very best that they can. Thank you.
Marie, did you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to say my thing again about making sure. I think this is a good time to also remember that teachers had 2 weeks we all had 2 weeks, administrators, teachers, whatever. I mean, I didn't do anything over those 2 weeks except try to give my kids some structure during the day, but there was essentially 2 weeks that the AOS had to move this along. And I think I just want to reiterate, this is going to be this skill of teaching online and learning online is going to be a skill that we're going to need to have for a while. And I would just reiterate, we need to give teachers what they need so they can be successful in how to do it, so that this collective angst that comes forth, that is part of it is aimed at teachers, part of it is aimed at, whatever, can be alleviated. Because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing. Like, I want my kids to have rigorous education and learn and be engaged. And the only way to do that is sometimes I want to cry listening to these classes. I feel so bad for these teachers who are trying to pull out any sentence they can out of these kids who are they're doing the best they can too, but I want it to be this should be a goal that we can rise to. This should be a challenge that we can get to. And if we don't give teachers, whatever it is, the training they need, the time in the classroom they need, whatever it is, and we don't pay them to make them feel really, really good about what they're doing and really, really good about how they're engaging online and being the best that they can be in the classroom translated online, then we're not going to get the result in our kids. And that's going to continue the angst that we all have about how this is going to move forward. It's not going away anytime soon. So I just want to do my little, plug for, we can't throw away all the criticism. We can't, because that's not our job. Our job's not to just say, well, they said this because this, and we said this because that. Our job is to weed through it and figure out what's the root of it. And if the root of it is anxiety, or the root of it is my kid didn't learn anything, or the root of it is I'm so thankful for online learning because my kid did awesome in it and they needed to be out of the classroom, then I think we need to get to that root, and we need to provide teachers and administrators with what they need. Stop worrying about the blame game and just give them what they need, and hear from them what they need to move this forward so it's positive for everybody.
Christy,
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say that the administrators have worked very closely with me to assemble bundles of money, and I've been working nonstop with Julie Kay and with Jill, and we're not only pulling together a lot of professional development that's been requested by teachers, but we're trying to give them a framework so that they can be thinking about their work differently and thinking about what is required, and to really give some professional development around instructional design. We're trying to do that in a differentiated way, and different teams of teachers have signed up to explore some different things that they can then share with others, so there'll be people doing that deeper work and be able to share it with others. So we've brought together REAP money, instructional grant money, and some of the COVID-19 funding. And our intent is to be able to support teachers to be doing some of this. They're going to have to do the work anyway, but like you said, Marie, to give them that support, to give them that help, to give them that professional development that they've been asking for, and then also to pay them some time to work together to get things prepared. So I just want to let you know that is in the works and is being planned. And I think, teachers have responded. I have 65 teachers from across the district who applied with colleagues. So each one of those is actually 2 to 5 more teachers. That's a lot of teachers who want to do summer work on this summer. And I've been so impressed by their ability to listen in. One of the things we've done with the Common Studies is they've heard that some other people are doing things differently than them. So some of the teachers who didn't figure it out quite as well heard examples of things that other people were doing. So we've opened it up that there wasn't one way to do it. There's also a lot of misunderstanding about the time piece, and we really have to get that better. But some teachers seem to have interpreted that very differently than other teachers, and that came out in these Common Studies too. They were given the same parameters and they were interpreted really differently. So I think that we're going to learn a lot from the feedback. I think that's important. I think we're asking teachers to also provide feedback. We'll give the board a report more specifically when we have that all together.
That would be great. That would be, and I don't know, we may be meeting all summer, so we might all be working over the summer besides working. Well, I might be working less over the summer so I can work more with the school.
I was going to say, maybe you're going to be working, but
Maybe I'll be working less on my own business and working more somewhere else. And then I just to finish this up, I also invited the teachers to, if they wanted to come, Amanda and Brian or a representative and speak to these issues even more after they meet with Barb, to the whole board, that they were welcome to attend our June meeting, which I know we'll be having a June meeting, and I'm not sure what will be happening after that, or whether we'll see what goes on later this summer. But I just, and anyone else listening, I wanted them to be sure to know that the door's open, that we want to hear their concerns. Ready to move on to the, well, thank you, everybody. The middle school question, I'm not sure why that's on here. So I didn't know. Somebody put it on there. Nobody knows.
I don't know, Christy. I'm not, I didn't put it on there, but I guess Barb and I we're available to respond to whatever information or question there is.
I think it had
might
been
have said something. Just curious about what we do with it.
Well, I think it's on the ballot for June, still as a polling question. I mean, we didn't necessarily get the public forums we wanted to talk about it, but hopefully, we'll still get that good feedback, from the towns. And then I don't know if Marie, I think we talked about this at the AOS level to keep the momentum running and to continue, but I don't know what the next step. I think that's up to Heather to gather the next steps.
yeah, I mean, we did, Bar Harbor was on the trajectory and followed through on the timeline and the expectations that were set forth for the Bar Harbor School Board, which were meet with town councilors and discuss it in a public way, which we did. Talk about it at school board meetings in a public way, which we did. Write an op-ed as penned by the whole school committee, the middle level school committee, which we did, and publish it, which we did. I can't speak for what anybody else did at the other schools. I don't know what, that may be reported out at the next AOS level, Mark, if you haven't have that on the agenda, whoever does that. But the decision was made by board chairs across the island not to have only one middle level discussion and presentation for the public, and the other middle level discussions and presentations were going to be done and initiated by the individual school boards. It was scheduled, unfortunately, for the smack dab in the middle of the first week that the school buildings were closed. So the one giant island-wide public presentation, which was akin to the one that we did last spring, was canceled. Having said that, my understanding is that all the other school boards are still functioning and meeting with their town council people, and should be, according to the AOS chair, putting out information to their individual communities. I don't know if that's happened or not. I'd love to hear one way or the other, but that was my understanding, that just because we weren't doing an island-wide presentation, my understanding that those questions would still be brought forth to individual school committees and individual communities led by those individual school boards. Again, it's just a straw poll question. And I say just not because it's not important, but it's just a way to get the temperature and solidify some of the decisions that the AOS has already made at the AOS level, and that all the individual school boards have made at the individual school board levels. So there was some discussion, and Mark, you can correct me if I'm wrong, very on in one of our first Zoom meetings at the AOS level about someone writing an op-ed or someone doing something else. I don't think there's been any follow-up on that. I know that no one at the middle school level committee, that group of 17 people, was approached on that. So I guess my takeaways are the Bar Harbor School Board did everything that the Bar Harbor School Board should have done with the town of Bar Harbor. The AOS was instructed the individual school boards to work within their own communities to bring forth that question and bring forth the information to their communities. And then the AOS was also going to be put forth something again about this question at some point. And those last two sections are things that I don't know anything about.
Yeah, I was to say, before I call on Mark, and you can answer that, it might be time, to possibly discuss with Dick Broom or someone, an article or an interview now that we're closer to voting, and just to remind everybody what that question is about. It's not, building a middle school next fall, with COVID-19 and the coronavirus and the anxiety over income and the summer course season. I'd hate to see people vote negatively that would have voted positively because they're worried about money, that this is so preliminary in the planning of a middle school that that maybe just a little more follow-up might be needed to make sure people know what we're voting on. But Mark, did you want to?
The quick overview is Marie nailed it. The elephant in the room, though, is COVID-19, and that derailed a lot of our discussions and our plans. But that aside, not an excuse. I can tell you that the problem is we've had 2 town meetings out of the, out of the 10 budgets the 11 budgets that we need to pass.
Hello?
Sorry.
Oh, I'm gonna call you back.
Out of all those budgets, we've only had 2 town meetings, and the Cranberry Isle, they voted to continue with the conversation. I do know that town managers are planning on having that question, and certainly I think the next piece is to make sure that whether it's me or through an op-ed or an interview with Dick Broom, because that hasn't been the focus on people's minds. So it's important to reiterate, 1, it is a straw poll. 2, we're not advancing a proposal or a project. It's a concept. So I think that's important for people to know, and we will move forward with that, because the other piece to this is the uncertainty of town meetings. We don't even know when our town meetings will occur, but it's likely that it'll be sometime in July, whatever that process may be. So our window is narrowing, and that'll be something that we'll tackle here in the next few weeks. But again, for the communities that did have town meetings, that was there. I can't speak to beyond what individual other board chairs or communities have done, but I will follow up on that. Sorry, Kristen.
Marie?
So I would say, regardless of the town meeting, though, over this winter, there's supposed to be some conversation. Board chairs said they would like to have conversations with their individual school boards with their towns, not at town meeting, in advance of town meeting, whenever town meeting is. So my understanding is that they can, now that we've all figured out that, we're switching all of our meetings to Zoom, they should be on the agenda, if they haven't been already, between now and town meeting, to have those conversations. So I think that's one thing that we need to just figure out at the AOS level. And the second is, hopefully they had those conversations. It's on the ballot. And then the second part is the informational piece that the board chairs wanted to remove from the level of the committee and push it onto the information exchange between the school board and the towns. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think those are the two critical pieces. Did it make it onto the ballot for each town? As requested, did school boards, as they requested, have the conversation with their communities about what that question on the straw poll question actually means?
I'm aware that several of those conversations did take place, and I think I don't want to be singling out individual communities which did or did not, but I will follow up on the ones that I'm not aware of, because certainly if conversations did occur and I'm not aware of them, I don't want to misspeak. But I do know that what you are referencing is important, Marie, and has happened in several communities. I think the question is, has it happened in all of them? And I will follow up.
Well, I mean, we never had a public, I think what you're referring to, we're supposed to be open to the public meetings in each individual town, which we didn't ever scheduled or had on any agenda here in Bar Harbor.
My reference is just to either board chairs or boards talking to councils and town managers and getting the question on the ballot and making sure they were clear on the verbiage and what was being asked. But to Marie's earlier point, the only forum that we were going to have, which was, again, it was a single forum that was supposed to occur in March. It didn't happen. So that part, there's been no follow-up to that. And so it strikes me that an op-ed or a clarification or an interview or a piece to make sure people are aware when they go to the polls, in whatever format that's going to be, that they can have context and make an informed decision on the question.
Marie?
Does it make sense, now that we have all this technology, like we're pros at it, to figure out some way to do a presentation online? The original presentation that was canceled because of COVID-19. Again, I know all the individual school boards said they wanted to do their own presentations in their own communities. I'm having a hard time believing that that's going to happen, because we can't figure out how to even do a town meeting with more than 50 people. So I don't know how each individual community is going to be able to host their own. So in lieu of that, not that I've asked any of the people who were going to present if they wanted to do it on Zoom, but I could certainly put forth to the middle level education committee if they would like to do some sort of an online presentation that would be open to everyone, to talk about, at least, give the presentation that they were going to present that was going to be island-wide.
Well, if I may, and I certainly don't want to speak for the board chair, the AOS, or any of the board chairs, but I would embrace and welcome that, because any help we can get in putting information out is going to be received really well. The other point that I would make is that if anybody takes any umbrage to that, we never had the opportunity to have that forum. And I think it would be an excellent opportunity for people, A, to view it, and B, we could post it to the website for anybody that can't attend and see it. And it's information and put it out there. So I think it's a great idea. Christy, if you're okay, I'd like to reach out to Heather, if you'd like to reach out to Heather. And I mean, if folks are willing to roll up their sleeves and do that, I would hope we would embrace that.
Yeah, we just had the town of Bar Harbor just had, that open meeting with the short-term rentals where they had the planning board members on the screen, and then the moderator, who could be Josh, for this, could see who was viewing, and they could indicate that they had a comment, and they could vocally ask their question. And if he answered, if you wanted to do a format like that, I think you could. I would also say, I think it would be great to offer some kind of online session, but I would also follow up as well with a newspaper article or info, because for Bar Harbor, our vote is that first weekend of July. And now that it's June 1st and all these businesses are just being able to reopen from being off all this time, I mean, I think it's going to be hard for people to join in. I think people want the information, but I would maybe try to do both if you want to get the information out there before people vote. It's a short window.
Yeah, and it's apologies, but I'll own it because the buck stops with me. It's important, but it hasn't been my focus or priority, but I'll get on this and follow up on those 2 points, because I think it is important. It would not do justice to the question to have it on the ballot if people didn't have information to make an informed decision. So I see the importance, and timing is everything. So thank you.
Well, I think this might be one of those things that actually we're a tiny bit of a benefit, because I'm able to convince our 3 presenters to do this online, it will be recorded, like Christy said. And if you're too busy, if we'd had it now, like in this were a normal world, live, like nobody would be able to come because they were working, but now none of us can work-ish. So there may be a better opportunity to reach more people with an online forum like they did for the planning, because I listened to that one too, Christy, and they had a moderator and they had a chat session that they shut down because it got crazy. But anyway, it was it ended up being good. What? There was a chat. Yeah, that was like, I'm going to delete these. I'm happy to reach out to the presenters from the middle level committee and ask if they'd be interested and willing to do that. I don't know who do I talk to for logistical? Is it Josh?
So Christy, if you're okay with it, I can speak to Heather tomorrow. We can do an email, but the logistics, would be, I think the conduit would be Josh in short order, and any resources or support he needs, we'll work to do that. But ideally, if the short answer behind the scenes, Marie, yes, we can work with Josh in terms of the best vehicle to record and upload and present.
Yeah, if you're okay cutting me out of the loop, I'll let Marie talk to her presenters and let you talk to Heather, and then you guys can coordinate. And
I'll share that with all the board chairs. I know that Heather was planning on having a meeting, but again, I don't think she'd have any concerns because we were scheduled to do the presentation. So this would just be a variation and a rescheduling of that presentation. So, yeah.
Well, it would also take the burden off. I know that the board chairs wanted each individual board to do their own presentations in their own community, but I think it would take the burden off of each individual school board of meeting with their own community. We could just simply broadcast. Exactly. I mean, people.
It can be emailed to the town councils and those folks. So yeah, that's a great idea. Thank you, Marie.
Is there anything else regarding the middle school?
Not unless anybody else has questions. No, I don't have anything further. Thank you.
And I think negotiations is on here. Was there something in particular, or was this just on here to find out if we had an update?
Well, again, I'm not sure why the item's on there, but what I can speak
I think
to is.
maybe these might be on here from last month.
Who made this
that's
agenda
okay.
anyway?
What I,
This agenda, I think. I wish. I
think
don't remember them being on there.
I think it was part of a future agenda list that was just ongoing, so.
Right. Yeah.
So to that point, what I can tell you is that we're in the final year of our collective bargaining agreement. And when I mean our final year, we're going to begin the final year of our approved collective bargaining agreement. And we'll start the process of collective bargaining with our associations. I'm not sure how Bar Harbor is going to approach their representation, but I know we're looking forward to the process, and that's going to be something I know board chairs will be discussing. But I guess in short, I'd say come August or this fall, we'll begin our process again. I really don't know what else to say unless there are specific questions, but we've received notification from our association colleagues that they are prepared to enter in collective bargaining, and we'll be prepared to meet them and look forward to working with them and coming to a positive resolution.
Mark, have we received notification from the support staff as well? They usually, I think, much later than the teachers do. Maybe we don't normally receive that notification.
We may have. I know that we've received probably at least, I'm going to say at least 4 or 5 letters from association presidents. And frankly, I mean, that's required. It's due diligence, but
we have like 180-day.
Yeah, it's a notification period, but again, and we understand that, but we're prepared to enter into collective bargaining with all of the associations and representatives. We know this is the year, and we look forward to that. And hopefully we'll be able to work collaboratively to get things done. But I'll double check on support staff in terms of whether we received a letter, because those normally come to the chair and to Selena and myself.
Yeah, I didn't recall receiving.
And I can reach out to Sherry and Kurt because, again, we, outside of support staff, we maintain regular communications with our association presidents.
Hey, anything else about? No, right? Okay, Mark,
Yes.
consideration of extension of contracts for administrators.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm pleased to recommend Barb Neely, principal of Connors Emerson School, for extension of continuing contract. The maximum allowed by law, state statute in the state of Maine is a 3-year contract for principals. And I would like to nominate Barb Neely for a 3-year contract. I believe that will take us through the 2022-2023 academic years at a salary as approved and agreed upon by the school committee in the FY21 draft budget.
Anyone like to make a motion to accept that recommendation? I think they would.
I'm sorry, I couldn't find my unmute button. Oh, Lily's moving. I can second. Either. So moved.
So second.
Okay. So does this mean if we have a 3-year contract that Barb is not allowed to retire for at least 3 years? Is that she's agreed back in return?
I would just say I was a little nervous by the pause, but I think we're okay. What that means is that Barb Neely is a gem, and we hope that she stays with us for some time. That's all I'm saying about that. I'll defer to Barb on the rest of that question.
And do we have to we have the salary and the budget. Do we have to say the numbers, or can we say as approved, as written in the budget for?
I think you could approve it this way, but it might, as the number, it's
I have
probably
the number.
appropriate to put that in the motion, please.
So I have the number. It's 116,592.
And that's this year's salary with the,
2021.
And Christy, I'll just quickly, while we're in discussion, I just want to note that I sent the board, all board members throughout the AOS, a report from the National Association of Principals. And the average for a tenure for a principal is somewhere in the order of 7 years. Barb Neely has been an exemplary principal for Connors Emerson for 29 years. During that period, Barb Neely has principaled, along with her staff, not one, but two national schools of excellence, and continues to perform in an exemplary way. So kudos to Barb. And I know we were poking fun about the fact that she can't retire and she's been there a while, but I've not worked with an individual who is as fresh 29 years into this as the first year she was doing the job. So it's a pleasure to work with her, and I thank her for all she does.
Thanks.
are we ready to vote? Marie,
Approved.
Dwayne,
Approved.
Lily,
Approve.
and I approve as well. That's unanimous. Congratulations, Barb.
Thank you.
Are we also approving Heather today?
Yes.
Yes, if I may, Barb, is it okay?
Please. Yep.
I would like to also recommend Heather Webster for extension of continuing contract as the assistant principal of Connors Emerson School. And again, that is the maximum period allowed by state statute. And Heather, in her own right, people may not know, but she was served as a principal in Outer Island schools and does an amazing job as a colleague for both Barb and our students and Connors Emerson School. So I'm pleased to recommend her for extension of her contract, continuing contract as well. And I don't know, Barb, if you have that number. I don't have that in front of me.
I do. It's 88,056. So 88056. And just while I have the floor, I just want to say Heather's the best. I think we complement each other well, but she does the lion's share of a lot of the work behind the scenes. And we just, we're so fortunate to have her.
Can I get a motion to accept the recommendation?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Dwayne.
Second.
You guys are way too kind, but thank you.
Are there any other comments? No, are we ready to vote? So Marie,
Approved.
Dwayne,
Yes.
Neely,
Approved.
and I approve. That's unanimous. Congratulations, Heather. You're not allowed to leave either. We have you all held hostage. Okay. So nomination and election of teachers. Did everybody receive the nomination papers? And so are you, do we need to do a summary or?
If I may, Christy, I'll just give you a quick overview of these two individuals. And you can break them out if you'd like, or you can vote them as a slate, however you wish to proceed. I'd like to nominate Kathy Umke for the elementary education teaching position. You may have noted Kathy is a PhD, and she's currently working at the collegiate level. And that might raise some eyebrows as, say, an individual with that caliber of education expertise doing research. But I was struck by the fact in my conversation with her is that her passion and where she really wants to be is with children. And that's where she finds herself to be most effective and most connected. I did probe that because I was curious about somebody with her experience and her level. Why Connors Emerson? Why this point? And she was really clear about the investment connection. She does have roots to this region. She's very much attracted to this school and this school system. She wasn't looking to go other places. She came exceptionally recommended. Barb and her team were unanimous in recommending Kathy. And so I'm just thrilled. I think the depth of knowledge she has, the experience, and the fact that she's so humble and collaborative really speak well to the fact that she'll be a great asset and resource for our students and our school. And the second nomination is Helen Jolly, and that may not be a strange name to you. We were so sad when Helen left our school. It was, I think, early on in the time that I arrived here, but she's an outstanding health and physical education instructor. She was a continuing contract teacher, and she left to pursue some other interests at the time, but she's at a point in her life where she's thrilled to have the opportunity to come back. And Barb and her team couldn't say enough nice things and couldn't be enthused enough to move that recommendation forward. So with that, I'm pleased to recommend both of those individuals for consideration of probationary teaching status to the school committee. Thank you.
And Mark, is this for Helen Jolly similar to the conversation we had about Chrissy Parkinson, that because she resigned and is coming back into the position, she is entering as a first-year probationary teacher, even though she was
Yes, her break in service. So yeah, it's not anything. I mean, she obviously was an outstanding teacher, is an outstanding teacher, but the short answer is yes. If you have a break in service and you're coming back, you enter probationary status. It might be surprising, but I had a continuing contract teacher in another school in the AOS come to another AOS school, and they started in the probationary status. So the short answer is yes.
right. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the slate?
I move
So moved.
to approve this slate.
So I have Dwayne moving. Can Lily?
I'll second.
Okay. Are there any further discussion? All
I would
right.
just say I'm happy to see Helen. She, I have nothing but fond memories of her, and she was a fantastic role model for young women at the school. My kids are seriously devastated that Brian O'Connell is leaving. They thought he was a peach. I'm very happy to see. He's so big shoes to fill, but I wanted to just sigh of relief when I saw her name come across. I can't think of a better person. And Bree's like listening to me, like, who are you talking about? Miss Jolie, remember Helen Jolie? Math? Yeah. So you can't hear. I don't know if you can hear her, but they love her. So thank whoever in the world made that happen.
Not a vote.
Our stars aligned.
Exactly.
And she has grown so much, even beyond what she had been with us. So
It's hard to believe. That's awesome.
It is hard to believe. And I think she and Brian Dion will complement each other quite well.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to vote. Marie.
Yes. Approved.
Dwayne, did you say yes?
What's that?
Did you vote yes?
I think you froze. You
Yeah.
froze.
Oh,
I didn't hear anything, so I was waiting. I was like, what is anybody else?
I think we're
I
losing signal a bit,
So
but
yes.
yes, Lily,
approve.
I approve as well. Yay. Well, that's great. I'm so thrilled to have those two teachers in place. And that is all our hiring for this year, right? Fantastic.
Yes, with the exception of a custodian, we're all set.
Now we have a custodian. Barb, the next item is the transfer to reserves. Originally, Selena messaged that we didn't have any transfers. And then Nancy messaged that maybe you wanted to transfer $1,000 from somewhere to somewhere. Sorry, I could pull up. Adam, please stop. Do you want to make that transfer, Barb? Nancy's down there. Yes, Nancy, please.
Yes, that was, I overlooked, it was $1,000, so I missed it on one of the lines. And thank goodness Barb caught it. So last year you did do 5,000, but this year the budget was only 1,000. So I believe that, Christy, I think you have the motion. It's just to transfer $1,000 to the special ed reserve as directed by the 1920 budget is basically what it is.
Right. The motion is I can't make the motion though, right?
Technically you could, but normally the chair doesn't. And but Christy, if you wanted to make the motion, you could, but technically it's usually protocol that it doesn't come from the chair.
I move $1,000 transfer to the reserves,
The special ed reserve.
to the special ed reserve.
Yes. The emergency special ed reserve.
Do I need to say that over again?
Nope. I think we got it. Any more discussion on that? No. Marie, do you approve?
Approve.
Dwayne,
Approved.
Lily,
Approve.
and then I approve as well. And then this is the authorization for superintendent to hire during the summer months. If we should need to hire while we're not in session, he'll email, and then you have a certain time limit to object to the hire, and then we vote officially in the fall. Did I cover that?
Yeah, usually we do a 3-day period, but as you mentioned, Christy, I think during the times we're in,
We might be meeting anyway.
yeah, subject to the availability of school committee, I see us meeting through the summer, and but so this may be moot, but and the other thing to recognize is that if I do issue a contract, it is subject to the school committee's approval when they do convene. But this is something we do each year.
Do we want to take a motion?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion on that? Okay, let's vote. Marie,
Approve.
Dwayne,
Approved.
Lily,
Approve.
and I approve. Mark, are you going to discuss the school lunch price for the 2021 school year?
If I may, Madam Chair, again, in recognition of the extraordinary times we're in and difficulties for everybody, COVID-19 knows no economic strata, no social strata. It's impacting all of us in different ways. And given that, and the fact that we did increase lunch prices in the present year we're in, it is my recommendation to the school committee for the 2020-2021 school year that we do not have any increase in both breakfast and lunch prices. I did provide the school committee a matrix. I would like to recommend that the price for breakfast be $1.25, consistent with our 2019-20 breakfast price. And by the way, it's been, as I look, at least 5-6 years consistent for the breakfast price. For the lunch price, I would like to recommend that be set at $2.95 for students. And that is consistent with the current year. And that was a 10-cent increase over 2 years ago. Thank you. Also, that's going to be my recommendation across the AOS that all schools maintain their breakfast and lunch prices for the coming year.
Do we need to vote on that to maintain that, to establish those prices? Okay.
please. And I don't know if Barb has anything or Nancy they'd like to add, but that would be a motion and a vote would be in order if you are inclined to do so.
I'm very comfortable keeping the prices the same. We were able to come in under budget through Tina doing a lot more home cooking. So I'm fine with that.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
So moved. And then I have a question after.
I get a second?
Second.
I'll give that one to Lily. All right. And Marie, what's your question?
I know every year we talk about, or Barb reports out that some people probably, that maybe it would be helpful for them to apply to reduced lunch, but they just don't do it for whatever reasons those are. And I know that that's been a challenge. And so my question is, I guess a couple things maybe I'm wondering we need to think about. One is there may be some folks this fall that never would have seen themselves in the position to need to apply to this. So one, that is, that's going to happen out there. And then two is, and I know we've asked this and answered this before, but is there anything that we have heard from the state or wherever to make the application process easier? Is there an online thing that someone can do? I know we get the packet every year and we get the sheet of paper and that's how you fill it out. But even sometimes that can be sort of cumbersome or just falls to the wayside for people. So, are there any strategies that we can come up with or that we have been given by the state or by the federal government to make application and acceptance into the program easier?
Yeah, it's interesting. I actually have a meeting with Walter Beasley tomorrow from the state and Charlotte Ellis, who does some data collection. And what I didn't know, and actually nobody knew, is that when parents are filling out the free and reduced lunch form now, during this pandemic, that they're actually automatically qualifying for TANF and SNAP and some of the other programs that normally they would have had to apply for. So I can ask about an online application. I don't know about that. But once they apply and are approved, then their name and information automatically gets dumped into the DHS folder, if you will. And then they start coming out with EBT cards and things like that. So I think that's where we need to start. We need, when I hear from Walter, if this is going to continue through the fall, then I think that's where we do sort of a blitz campaign with people and letting them know, this is a benefit to you. You should sign up for it.
It just seems like even with the increased number of folks that have had to or chosen to take advantage of some of the restaurant food, for food insecure folks or the restaurants that are doing Red Sky and Havana and some of the other places, it just seems like we probably need to just continue that push to let people know that that's an option that they may have thought they needed to consider before.
Yeah, and we try to let them know, on a monthly basis that at any point in time when your income changes, you can reapply and it will carry you for a full year, So a lot of times with the seasonal folks, if they would just apply mid-year, in December and January when they're not bringing in any money, that would carry them for the full year.
Any other, oh, Mark.
Well, once again, this just speaks to something Marie pointed out and you pointed out in school committee. We made some cuts to a position. And again, we have our principals who are focused on our students and teaching and learning, but we have good people like Barb that are having to liaise with the state because we don't have the resources. And I understand because of who we are in our structure and the times we're in, but probably I would say 90% of the districts across the state, public school districts, have a person coordinating this and we don't. And that's not, I'm not whining, I'm not complaining, I'm just stating a fact of the obvious. And so going back to Marie's question, if we had folks that were able to work with our principals, with our food service directors and all of these staff, these are things that we're not able to maximize the talents of our people because of the the time that they have to devote to some of these responsibilities. And again, I want to be really clear. I'm aware of the times that we're in and the financial constraints, but this speaks to the fact that we're not operating to the maximum capacity of how we could. So, but Barb's, she is pulling together a lot of resources, but when she does that, what is she not doing? I think is what I'd like to highlight. Thank you.
Any other discussion? We'll take a vote on keeping the lunch prices the same for next year as they have been this previous year. Marie,
Agreed. Yes.
Dwayne,
Approve.
Lily,
Approve.
and I approve. It's unanimous. Have we received any additional public comment?
I'm not, I got a text from Selena earlier that there was nothing, but if we receive anything, Christy, we'll forward it to you and we'll provide it as public comment at the beginning of the next meeting.
Okay. Is there any other business?
The only thing I'd recommend is that if the school committee's open to it, given the uncertainty of the times that we're in and all the work that we have to do, I know there are a lot of parents and staff and kids want to know what's going on in the summer, what's going to happen in the fall. And I am establishing an advisory committee through the approval of the board chairs that will help me understand all the questions out there by the various constituencies and stakeholders across our district. This task force, this advisory group, the purpose of it basically is to determine how we can and when we can safely consider the return to our schools. Now that's a big question. And so the people at the table, obviously, there's going to be a lot of folks, but we'll have students, we'll have parents, we'll certainly have a variety of staff, we'll have board members. We are so blessed also in our district to have the resources of the MDI hospital, the biolab, the Jackson lab, some of the foremost minds in science in the world, literally. And so we're going to tap into that expertise to make sure that we're looking at the right data, the right questions, we provide some research, and that we can make an informed decision. And let me just say too about decisions, although the opening and closing of schools vest with the authority of the superintendent, I'm not at all unaware of the fact that we serve our communities, we serve our students, and we need to make sure that any decisions and recommendations we make need to be vetted by through our school committees. So this is going to be an enormous amount of work. There'll be a lot of people at the table, but I envision this looking very similar to what we did with our long-range planning, is that we'll have a lot of people that will provide us some information, questions, and context, but the real work will be done by some subcommittees or some groups that may have to splinter off, do some work, and bring back recommendations. It sounds like a long ways off, but really we don't have a lot of time to do this, because if we're really going to be making some informed decisions, we're going to have to be able to come up with some recommendations in August. And that's not far off. What I can say to you is that at the present, and I understand and respect that some folks don't agree with this, but we don't get a second chance to get this right. Our schools are closed right now and we're operating on remote learning. People know that. But our summer programs will continue in that realm. And that's not uncommon that across the state with public schools and across Hancock County with public schools. So we have a lot of work to do. I can say no matter what we do end up doing, there'll be some people that will be happy. There will be some people that will be disappointed. But I promise you this, we're going to listen to everyone, and we're going to make sure that we make recommendations and take actions that are going to include the voice and the data and the safety to make sure that we're doing the right thing. At the end of the day, too, as Barb indicated, I'll close by saying the greatest capacity to make sure that people are safe is to make sure that they're heard, and that these building-based teams are really stood up to make sure that the pieces that are central to each specific school are focused on. So in short, we have a lot of work, and I'll just say a lot of people have reached out, and I appreciate that. There are so many people that want to participate. It's hard to say yes to all of them, and we can't. So I want folks to know that we appreciate their outreach, and we'll be making some invitations available very, very soon, and we'll be updating the board regularly. Thank you.
When do you said you have like a short list now that you're working on that will be
Yeah.
have a group shortly? Is that
The process I've used, Christy, and the only reason that, or the major reason I've held off is I just want to make sure that we're paying attention to geography, we're paying attention to constituency, we're paying attention to make sure that we have the right stakeholders at the table to process this information. And that's hard because we are a collection of a diverse group of communities. I'm prepared to send those invitations out in the next couple of days. We would hope to have our first meeting in the next week. And the short list, it's not me just sitting in a room looking at names or coming up with names. I have asked board chairs, I've asked administrators, Barb and Heather have been part of that conversation. So, and we've had many, many volunteers. So I want to make sure too that when those invitations go out, we're probably looking at somewhere in the order of 20 to 30 people. That's a lot of people. And, in order to drill down and make sure that the actual work is done, we're going to have to pare that down some. So it really is difficult to do it because I would love to be able to have everybody at the table. But I don't want to be evasive, but we'll have some updates and be able to release the names soon when the invitations go out and people say whether or not they want to participate.
Mark, I don't know if you saw before the meeting, Robin Sue sent an email to the group about going back to school in the fall. And she had, mentioned that COA's made the announcement that they will have school here live in the fall. And her question was, if the state commissioner's guidelines and the governor's guidelines, are such that we can't go back to school following the guidelines, could we go against those guidelines? I'm not advocating. I'm just asking, is there or our hands tied?
Well, I'll answer it this way. I think that everybody, again, is doing the very best they can, including our government officials. But in short, as I see this unfolding, unless something comes down differently through an order by the governor, an executive order, or some difference, that Maine and many other states in our nation, the decisions that are made are codified through local control. And so at the end of the day, you mentioned the key word, Christy, guidelines. The governor issues guidelines. The governor can also issue executive orders, but what we have seen to date are guidelines. What we're hearing from our commissioner are guidelines. And as much as we will do our best to continue to follow guidelines, there may come a point in time where that may look differently. That certainly is going to look different for colleges and universities and businesses. And this is why the importance of this task force and hearing people and considering data and involving experts is so important, because each region is different. MDI looks different than Portland, than Bangor, than Jackman, than Fort Kent. However, we do have a dynamic that is different from all of those too, and that's our travel and tourism. And that also is going to lend itself to another dynamic too. So to date, because of our density and because of our proximity and because of travel and tourism being what it is and restrictions, we've not seen that spike. We don't know now that the park, Loop Road, and businesses and hotels and restaurants, whether that's a good thing or not a good thing, that's not for me to judge. But I do know that it is going to bring a larger number of people to the area, and dependent upon whether or not the virus comes to our area is going to dictate next steps. I will say this. Those folks that are looking for a traditional return to school, quote unquote, status quo normal, I don't envision that. I hope that to be the case. But I do think that, or I know this, we're all working very, very hard to return back to normal, whatever that is, but it's going to look different. I would hope that we can work with our teachers and our communities and our staff to do and make sure we continue to put safety first. And we recognize that we want to return to school, but if we return to school too quickly and unsafely, everything we've done to date is going to be compromised. So it's a very complex question. I'm sorry to be so long-winded, but I think about this daily. It's what keeps me up at night. And I can't give you concrete answers as the information changes daily. It's going to depend upon a lot of things. Testing and what that looks like, personal protective equipment, being able to ensure that our students and our staff are safe when they come to school. And the other thing is too, it could be a variation of many things. If we return to school, it might look differently through some staged approach because we need to reduce density, but there's a lot of things and a lot of information. And before I go on any further, Christy, I think this speaks to the fact of why we need to continue to hold regular meetings to update the public and make sure people know that we're working on it and that we're considering a lot of things and that the school committee's engaged and that our staff are going to be engaged. Sorry I was so long-winded.
No, people, I mean, I think right now, that's where a lot of people's heads are, is what's going to happen in the fall. I mean, I'm resigned to the fact that we're finishing school, but I know it's weighing heavily on everybody's mind, like fall school and fall sports. And I know the recommendations have come out for fall sports or continuation of sports, but they looked very confusing to me, like phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 with no timelines. It didn't seem like it was ready for public.
There are so many, and I'm going to be careful as I say this, but there are so many questions. And again, it strikes me that the guidelines for daycares are different than schools. The guidelines are different from businesses to schools. And I will say that public education is compulsory. It's required. It's mandatory. We don't get a second choice. Going to a business is not compulsory. Going to some other places is not mandatory. And so for that reason, and because of the vulnerability of some of our students and others, we need to look at it through a different lens. And that's not an excuse. That's a requirement for us. That's our due diligence. And I want to make sure people know that we're being sensitive to that and considerate of that.
Actually, I thought that was a great answer for why can businesses open and not schools? So it is, there's a lot to look at there. Any other comments about that? Okay. Any future agenda items? I'm sure, fall.
Right. I had
on the agenda.
I had remote learning feedback as well as update on superintendent's safe return to school advisory group.
I think I covered that one.
You did, but I think we'll be doing updates on a regular basis.
Right. And even though we might be updated at the AOS level, I think we should continue having updates at the local level because different people might be attending those meetings.
Can I just say, like, I echo that, like, there's so much that none of us get to, there's so little that we have control over in this world. And I've found that even when there's updates that sort of maybe repeat some of the things, or even that's updates that just say, we wish we knew more, but we don't. I feel like they're incredibly helpful to our community. I feel like they're incredibly helpful to our cause, which is to do the best we can for our students. And I think we should continue to be as transparent as possible and as an update as possible, even when we know barely nothing. But even just the little bit that Mark just said, even though he said he thought he was blathering on, but I'm sure there's people that are watching tonight. Hopefully there's tons of people that are watching tonight, but and I'm sure those folks didn't know half of what he said. Just because it's in Mark's head, or maybe we've heard it before, that doesn't mean that everybody knows that, and it doesn't mean that they understand how the thought process or the decision making works. So I would just continue. We need to keep as much information flowing as possible, and say it like Christy said, in more than one place, multiple times. So I agree.
I think it's also good to keep sharing. I know, Mark, you share a lot of the commissioners and the updates with us, but maybe even links to what those guidelines are for public schools in the newsletters or out to emails, because I think a lot of people don't know that information. And we especially saw it at the high school level with graduation, that there were guidelines sent out that the school had to follow, and people didn't understand that there were guidelines. And so I think as often as we can share that information, we should as well.
I'll just say, Christy, I recognize communication. We can never do it well enough or often enough, especially during these times. And so I recognize too that emails or instant messages may not be the best vehicle. So I'll try to work with my team on how to really articulate the best way to get that information out to students and parents, because we really want people to be in the loop. We want people to be able to know that we're listening and that we're not operating in a vacuum. So this portion of the meeting has been very helpful to me to kind of prioritize the lanes of where I need to go. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately you can't carry it all on your shoulders. The onus is on some people to educate themselves, but I think we have to do the best we can. So anything else for future agenda? And I have next meeting date to be determined, but are we assuming that we'll maybe have a regular meeting the first week of June?
I think,
July.
well, depending on town meeting or
This is
July,
June.
rather, yeah, this is, yeah, but you know, as information unfolds, there may be some action, but yeah, July would be appropriate, please.
Okay.
Are people available that Monday of the week of July 4th?
I'm available.
I'm available. I didn't know if it would be a hardship on anybody. No? Good. July 2nd it is.
Oh, it's my birthday.
All right, birthday cake.
You
I was
want to
gonna
have
say-
a school board meeting on your birthday?
You know what? I opened a restaurant on my birthday last year, so it's all gone to, it's not about me anymore. I would just say, can you believe that? I would just say maybe, hopefully we'll
mother
follow up. Sorry?
I said, that's what your mother says. It's not
Yeah,
all-
exactly. The world does not revolve around me. So if it's July 2nd, then that'll be like 12 days before the town meeting. So we should be able to have some sort of a follow-up about the middle level presentation. Either the middle level presentation was done, like out there in the world, or it hasn't been done yet or whatever, but the Zoom thing. So just like close the loop on that before the Bar Harbor town meeting.
Actually, that meeting would be in between the Bar Harbor town meeting and the written vote.
Oh,
We would
okay.
have already had
That's
the
right.
town meeting, but the ballot is on the written
The
vote.
ballot's on the July one. That's written at the primary meeting, right? Primary voting, I mean, rather. Yeah, and that's the one that's in July.
Julie.
Right, okay.
Isn't it July 6th? The
That's
first
my
Monday?
birthday.
Did I read that? I may have got the wrong calendar.
I
Hold
think
on.
it's July 6th is maybe I've got the wrong calendar.
No, you've got the right
first Monday.
calendar. I just hit calendar and it's on 2018.
Okay.
Now we're ruining Lily's birthday.
Sorry.
Get out of the past, Barb.
Thanks,
20.
I know. Come on, computer.
Sorry, Lily.
Not a problem. I work on my birthday every year.
All right, anything else? Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I think Dwayne
I
said so.
heard Dwayne, yep.
Do we have to vote on that? Yes, Marie,
Approved.
Dwayne,
Approved.
Lily.
Approved.
All right, we are adjourned. It was
Thank
great to
you.
see you all, and let's all keep in touch and have a good June.
Yeah.
Stay
Good
well,
luck with
everybody.
the